everybody, welcome to the Julia Kamango Show. I hope you're doing well. It's good to see you guys again if you've been here before, and if you haven't, it's a mixed bag of things you're going to enjoy. I know you will. I'm funny sometimes. We are going to talk about something that I really wanted to talk about in a very not too scripted way, just because I kind of thought about it impromptu and I really want to talk about this. It was inspired by something we were doing at work yesterday, and I thought it would be interesting to have a deeper conversation on my channel. As audiences for TV and film in South Africa, and for filmmakers, this is a conversation we need to have. This is just part of the conversation. I'm just one person. I would definitely love to hear your view on everything I'm saying, so please sit back, get a drink, relax, bring a friend, let's have a discussion, okay? I feel like in South Africa, we have in the last 3 years been growing quite a bit. I was gonna say thanks to COVID. What I wanted to say is due to the pandemic, lots of people were sitting and binging a lot of TV shows, which gave us space to show that South African TV is something that is liked, and therefore more money has come into streaming platforms so that we could watch more TV and films from South Africa, which has been great. Due to this, there has been a big rise in the type of content we make. It's not your typical shows that we were having just, I would say, between 2014 and 2019, 2018, around there. It wasn't your typical stuff. And by this, I mean, we weren't just making a bunch of telenovelas. Now, again, the same way I said in my other video about what's happening in the South African TV industry, telenovelas are not the doom of like the industry per se. However, I feel like there was an issue when they were made. It ended up being a problem where all they wanted were telenovela ideas, and everyone's like, but I don't want to work on a project that long, so why would you make me do this? Now that there's a rise in different types of content, yes, we're doing better, but are we doing our best? I'm not too sure. So I really wanted to talk about some of the content topics that are missing within film and TV. Let me just remind you guys, let's go back into it. Back in the days when we were younger, each had their own different things. I know that my friends in our friend group, lots of people had different TV experiences when they were young. However, a lot of us had the same kind of routine. We'd watch Passions or Days of Our Lives or Bold and the Beautiful. Then we go watch Backstage or Seven Delan. And then you go watch Istingo because it was just, fantastic. And then next thing you know, you're going to watch Generations in the Good Times. Those good times when Julia and Kaya and Orolomode, and Zinzi and Zoleka and all, that timing around there, And then you go further and you watch your 8:30 show, whatever that means to you. Sukulu and Partners, you had your societies. Was it 8:30? Maybe 8, 9 around there. Your societies, your intersections. You had different content that you were watching. Foreplay, sex tips for girls. Whatever it was, we had a lot of different things. It wasn't a vast majority. It wasn't as much as we have now, because it was a time when TV was still very, like, we were getting into it as black people. We've always made content as black people, but now it was post-apartheid. We were united, we were one, it was great. And then there was like a weird downfall. We had more channels open up and less stuff that was interesting to watch. We had stuff, but sometimes the things we really liked wouldn't last as long as we wished. Sometimes there'd be just 2 seasons, stuff like that. Like, it's complicated. It was pretty cool. Didn't necessarily like how it ended, in my opinion, but it's fine. I like the concept as it is. We had Istoons. They only had 2 seasons. Really fantastic show. We had interesting things here and there. Sometimes a good show falls off, but we didn't have a lot of topics, even though we had more TV shows. We had Ayeye, which was 2 seasons, really good, and they cancelled it because they said we weren't watching it. People were watching it, it's just they didn't have the numbers of like Ispy or something. So they were like, ooh, telenovelas. And that's what they kind of went into, and the rest is history. Now, because of streaming platforms after the pandemic, we were able to create a lot more different types of shows, TV series and stuff like that, and movies that South Africans could watch on places like Netflix and Showmax, Amazon, and all those different places. Now we have so many movies and stuff that, firstly, a lot of us don't even have access to. There's some great movies out there in South Africa that I don't know where to find. But the stuff that are easy to find, still kind of lacking a bit. Not too bad, but lacking in diversity. Good in other ways. Diversity, not too much. I think that we have a fantastic plethora of storytellers in this country. Africans are just naturally good at storytelling. Not to like stereotype, but we just got that thing. It's in our blood, guys. We're so good at storytelling, and there's so many stories I hear from people in the daily telling me about their lives and ideas that they have and shit, and you're like, this should be a freaking movie, but it's never gonna be one because particular types of content are the only things that get approved a lot, and that's why people keep making them, because it's a tried and tested, thing. And this is not just a South African issue. I want to make that clear. This is an issue that they've been having in many countries, just like in USA. Everyone's crying because they keep adapting and remaking shit. Like, who asked for it? You know what I mean? I just want people to start thinking about different topics that they could perhaps write about. Even if only 5 people watch this, if it inspires one person to write a really good script that's different and they sell it and it opens up the doors for us, that will be fantastic. I am writing a bunch of different ideas, and I wish that one person would just, a private investor. Let's go, guys, because, government doesn't want me to think.
Oh shit, here we go again.
This is a big one, and someone mentioned it in my What is Up with South African Industry video, and I really agreed with what he had to say. And we're missing a lot of historical content.
You speak to me of an innocent? Those ships of yours, where do they take the children of Africa?
This country is rich in history. It is ridiculous, okay? Before Jan van Riebeeck, we were doing things. After him, we were doing things. Before apartheid and after apartheid. There's so much history in this country that we could definitely look into that is not Mandela. And I'm not saying that we don't have anything. We have the Silverton Siege. We have Kalushi. We have the Shaka series that came out now. We had the old Shaka movie. But there is more than just that. And I'm not saying that, these are just a few I've named. We have a good amount, but I definitely feel like we need a lot more. There's so many historical figures that are missing. The reason South Africa has a very hard time with history, aside from the fact that not lots of people took it, which is fine, you don't have to, it's because we don't make content, TV shows and movies about our historical events. Because they were really big. You learn about them in class and it's great and all, but you don't realize the big impacts that they had. I think sometimes seeing it, and this is not for trauma in any way, but it's just that sometimes seeing what happened gives you a better context than sometimes for people to read. Some people are visual learners, and that's perfectly fine. And I definitely think that there's a very big gap. We have so much history, that we could look into. Anglo-Boer War, for example, the birth of South Africa, birth of ANC, all the leaders, Steve Biko, Robert Sobukwe, all those different people that we had, we could talk about in different spaces, you know what I mean, that are just not Mandela, because it was, Chris Hani. We have so many different people, and they're people, underdogs we didn't really know about, would be very interesting. Different events that happened. If we want to start within here, fine, let's talk about apartheid. Different events that happened in apartheid, that is so devastating, the way the jails were and all those different things. We have so much content we could play with, and we're not doing anything. So many tribes here, the Venda people, the Tsonga people, the Basotho. We have so many different places and spaces we can play with that are not just Shaka. We can play around with that, you know what I mean? We can talk about the scattering of tribes and how they went into different countries and made places like Botswana and Lesotho, or the vice versa. And, even myself, my mom's side of the family are descendants of Zulu people all the way in Malawi. That is fantastic, right? Where are the stories? Why are we only talking about 3 things? I don't understand. There's so much shit we can talk about. And I definitely think it's something we need to look into as a nation. I know I can write some stuff from different points of views, and I definitely want to write a historical thing. It is very difficult to find our history because the white people burnt a lot of shit, okay? They ruined our lives, let's not lie. But I think that with the stories we've been taught from our ancestors and all those different things, we can definitely make amazing stories. Fictionalized versions of these things would be interesting, inspired by these things. Stuff like that. There's so much, guys. We don't have to look at the exact history all the time. Sometimes you hear a story about you hear a story about the Rain Queen and you're like, oh, that could inspire something. You know what I mean? And that is perfectly okay. You don't have to talk about the Rain Queen, especially if it's not your tribe and you don't have enough information. But with some nugget of information, you can make interesting things. And I definitely think we're missing out on that. The next one is something that is growing, which I'm really excited about, but I definitely think we can expand on it. And because it's growing, I think so, as a filmmaker, jump onto it. Oh my God, be part of the trend. Trend, bitch, it's okay. Adaptations.
When I'm 30, I want to own my own fashion line.
We have so many things we can adapt, not just books, music, ideas, pictures, poems, there's so many beautiful things we can adapt. Again, as Africans, we have great stories. In South Africa alone, we have great stories. ideas and artworks and moments and you see pictures of people and you're like, oh, that would be an interesting story to tell. Let's make something around that. We can adapt so many different types of things. We can reboot so many different types of things. We can remake things that mayhaps did not work. And I definitely think there's a very big space. I think South Africa has a beautiful amount of writers especially, and we're not really the biggest reading culture in this country. We're good, but we're not the best. And I guess maybe I'm saying this for more of a context of my spaces. My friends all read, which is fantastic. Not as avid as we used to, but we all do read. I have an idea for an adaptation I want to do, and I'm going to reread the book and write my script. I am playing these games and then present it to the person. I don't know how it works. I'll figure out how the rights work, but I definitely want to, delve into this adapted space. And I definitely think we all should look into it. Different ways of adapting things, inspired by, again, you can get inspired by a book and loosely adapt it. That's also perfectly fine. I know we have things like Happiness is a 4-letter word, The Wife was the telenovela. We just had Love, Sex, and 30 Candles come out. There's, Bear's gonna come out soon. Not soon, they're still casting. Stained Glass just had 3 slates. That is really exciting. However, I definitely feel like we can go further. Don't wait. Just start reading, start listening to music, start going to art galleries, start, adapt different types of mediums and see what you can create from that. It doesn't always have to be, you don't even have to just be South African things that can adapt into the space without stealing and removing the cultures, because you must be very careful of, that part too. Definitely cool. And I think we need to look at topics that aren't just based on the same thing. I think there's so many different types of things we can adapt, and it doesn't always have to be the same genre. There's so many genres we can play with. I think we should definitely have fun. This one is a huge topic we can definitely play with, guys. Guys, political dramas and comedies.
My name is Violet Bishop, and I'm here to facilitate the sale of your country.
Have you seen our political space in South Africa alone? Have you seen it? Have you witnessed it? It is ridiculous how much content they just give us. For free. It's a joke this side. And play with that. What does that mean? Is it a joke whereas you play with the funny? And I don't mean slapstick necessarily. You can play with it like Veep. It's a comedy, but it's not like ha 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 ha, kind of thing all the time. Or you can take the Scrubs route of how they do with medical shows and make it funny in that way. Or you can, there's different ways. You can go the Olivia Pope vibe way of politics. You can go the House of Cards politics way. There's so many different ways we can, adapt the situations we're in. Keep it true, keep it fictional, keep it inspired by, keep it loosely based off, come on. Think about how interesting it could be if we look at the politics in this country and make stories around it, near it, inside it. It could be so great. And I feel like we're missing out. I don't know why. Yeah, we have that new movie Rosa, but it's political, kind of, not really. But I definitely think we can even delve deeper into that. And I think we're missing a lot of different things we could play with. Think about it. Just watch the news tonight and be like, ministers who don't show up, ministers whose cops beat up random citizens, ministers who make jokes on Twitter, former ministers who cook on Twitter, dancing presidents. Guys, come on, it's writing itself. If I was more politically inclined as a person, I would definitely fall into this space. However, I try my best, but I think politics kind of escapes me a bit. I really do, but if I could, I think when I get older, I'll probably be a bit better at stuff like this, and I'll definitely fall into it. There's so much content, it's never enough. You can always make more. Next up, STEM-related topics.
The court order says we have to remove it.
Are you kidding me? What court orders homicidal surgery?
The reason I definitely think this is important is because, when you think of these topics, I think people think that they're boring, but it's not really boring if you're a good storyteller. I found myself watching things where I'm like, this would bore the shit out of me. But because the story was so good, I didn't care. I've watched, and I'm going to use, America's the biggest thing to use because there's such a large, they have such a large catalog, right? You can look at these topics and they make so many different things. When we talk about science, I'm talking about medicine, medical dramas would be amazing. I'm talking about like shows to do with like science experiments and whatnot, and all that kind of shit. There's comedies all over the place that have something to do with it. Engineering and technology and creating things. That would be so interesting if there's this big project we're trying to create in South Africa, and oh my God, there's drama around it, and you can surround it by so many different things. Technology, Black Mirror did a very good job at looking at, how technology and humans relate to each other. In a very fantastical fantasy science fiction way. We're missing a lot of science fiction stuff. So when I say STEM, I mean looking at it in all genres, but looking at these topics in different ways. How interesting could it be? Even aside from just STEM, stuff like law and stuff like that, like law dramas and as I said, political and stuff, would be very interesting to play around with and put it in different genres, but looking at these topics. How fun would it be if we applied the idea of our messy politics to technology and made it funny? Something like that. So I think that's something we definitely need to look at. But definitely the medical dramas. I feel like we don't have a lot. We had Durban Chen, and there was another one. Why is it leaving me? I hate it when this happens. It's not the only ones. There's probably more. I mean, I guess like in the Afrikaans space, it's definitely there. I don't watch Geknet, but I don't have DSTV. That could mostly be why DSTV sponsors me. Next up, the creative department.
People are gonna hate her. Action.
What about let's look at films and TV shows that have to do with our own industry, art industry, fashion industry, music industry. We have, the cooking industry. There's shows like The Bear, and there's shows, these movies like Whiplash, and, different things like that, because these spaces exist and we have so many, people we could, get inspired by. We have such creative people in South Africa, and we just seem to be missing a lot of content that is related to them for some reason, and I'm not too sure why. Like, you can create quite interesting things around the tension of the art space, Like, there's so many artists within South Africa. We have so many galleries. Are you telling me they don't have any lives that we could, like, create something from? You're not inspired by anything that's happening in those spaces? There's no tension in the gallery space. First Thursdays and whatnot. Like, come on. Like, guys, something funny, something real, something, kids in this space versus the people who've been like doing it for years and now they have to adapt to this space. Like, nothing. We have literally jazz giants like Hugh Masekela and Miriam Makeba coming from this country, and we're not making anything about them really. So why? Sophia Town, guys. Oof. So much shit you could do there. Why are we not talking about it? And this also falls into the historical content, right? Because also figures and people and musicians and people who helped us a lot. Do you know how beautiful music is? Like documentaries and whatever. We could really have a good time. And I know these things are being made. Quite all, guys. Like, and these things are being made. I've been part of a project. She's doing something in relation to Kwaito, and I really can't wait till the documentary comes out. It's going to be really great. But there's so much stuff already just from when I was shooting that. I was like, whoa, guys, we could really have some fun here, hey? Like, these people's stories are crazy. Get inspired, guys. Let's, come on, learn your history. Go and enjoy the world and see what the creative space is doing. Talk to people. I know we're running from job to job, especially as freelancers, but I definitely think that there's such a big space for all these different conversations. Oh, and also actually with creative space, I would like to add sports. We have a lot of sports related things we could talk about. And in relation to the creative space, I also separately put musicals and dance movies.
Welcome to the 5th annual Jaiva Auction Dance Competition.
Jaiva, She Is King, stuff like that. But I think we can definitely play around with different types of elements within this space. Even competition shows and stuff like that, musical competition shows, instead of just adapting them from other countries. I definitely think that we can do our own very well. But I also think that even in a film and TV kind of space, without the reality show element to it, I think that there's lots of things we could play around with. Musicals can be many different types of things, and we have great musicians who are also actors. We have lots of theater actors who would love to go onto TV, who could definitely make this happen, and they prove time and time again how beautiful musicals can be within our space. So why not look further into that aspect of it? Dancing, come on, this country, literally, guys, have you seen how people dance and how fun it could be to really push that aspect of it a lot more. So I definitely think musicals and dancing are definitely a big topic we need to look into. This one is a big one, and it really touches my heart because I don't understand why we're not doing better. When we were younger, we had an amazing show called Soul Buddies, and it really changed a lot of our perspectives on things. We had, a lot of shows integrated children a lot, and I think that we are removing them a lot from TV now. Because I think the laws around having kids on film sets, because they're very strict, which they should be, people don't want to have the hassle of dealing with kids on sets because you can only have them there for like 3 hours, 6 hours, and whatever, depending on the age. You need child minders and stuff like that. And, this country loves to run overtime. Oh my God. So I feel like children are being neglected a lot in TV, and teenagers are being neglected in South African TV. They don't even, already in life, and I know it's a tangent, already in life, kids don't have places to go, and they don't have activities, and it makes me really sad because when I was young, I had a lot of representation of who I am. However, I feel like kids now don't have the joy of getting to see themselves on screen. There are lots of kids who are very good at acting and stuff, and they would like to put their foot in a safe space, because I definitely feel like we should not exploit children, but I definitely feel like there's a space for them to be within stories. Our inner child wants to tell a lot of stories. Why not use that and create a safe space for kids to also see themselves here and there when we can? In a non-exploitative way. I don't think we should make child stars per se, but I definitely feel like we should let them have a bit of space to exist within our industry. So a lot of teen-related, kid-related shows and movies, yes, movies too, don't exist. And, I have a few ideas for myself too that I want to make that will fill that gap in, but they can be spread around all these different topics I was speaking about. I think it'd be really fun, and, make them educational, make them not. There's always a tone of education within them anyway, a lesson to be learned. But I definitely think that it can be educational and non-educational, but it doesn't have to be like Sesame Street, Takalani Sesame educational all the time. I feel like they can exist in other spaces that are not, YoTV, KTV types of spaces. Does YoTV still exist? You remember KTV? That shit was real, guys. That was fun.
Day by day, piece by piece.
Again, jokes, those people. But aside from that, I definitely think we can, again, learn from police, from what we have right now, what we want them to be, how they could be, how they are, all these different things we can play around the police. Fantastical ideas, stuff like that. I definitely think that our police system here is the culture is very different. How do you see the police existing within our country? What fantasy do you have? How do you see them in reality? How do you see them in when you were a kid versus now? Use all this to create ideas around the idea that we could make really cool police shows. I mean, let's not lie. America got every single one. Propaganda ones, bad cop ones. They got, every corrupt cop. They have, semi-corrupt cop. They have fantasy corrupt cop. They have detective from the future. They've got everything. And I know that's their culture. Now, what does it look like with our culture? Imagine having a JMPD and what is it called in other places? Western Capes. I only know Joburg stuff, guys. I'm so bad. Anyway, but I think we can definitely play around as a nation, as, a nation of filmmakers, and make different types of content that would be interesting. Poor people just existing.
Don't want to be like a guy here, Like Stanley is the crossword puzzle guy, and Angela has cats. I don't want to have a thing here. I don't want to be the something guy.
But sometimes poor people are just doing other things. And how interesting would that be if, we look at the Kasi, we look at the middle class, we look at the, we just look at the working man existing and falling in love. We look at the mom who can't work, and, unemployed people and people who are in shitty jobs. And and when I say poor people, I'm going to say poor and working class people just existing outside of the space of being tools to make rich people richer. How interesting would that be? I mean, you look at shows like The Office, both UK and US. That's just a bunch of working class people who are existing and having a mundane life. How interesting. I know we did have like a mockumentary in South Africa, which looked really funny. I didn't get to watch it. And again, because content is hard to watch in this country, you have to buy 18,000 streaming platforms in order to see anything. And I definitely think we can really go deeper. Yes, I haven't watched every show out there. I really try, but again, access and all these different things. But I definitely think that just us existing in our own bodies and surviving and all these different things will be interesting. It's an interesting topic, and I don't think we should shy away, because a lot of us in the writing rooms are kind of, that's us. Stuff like that. Like, I definitely think that we're missing a lot of just normal people existing. It's just, there's so much you can look in there alone, and I think that would be very interesting, to us. Lastly, out of the box, weird ass shit, okay? I think that sometimes we're weird as people. And that's lovely. Like, we have a weird culture. South Africans have a very different language, to the rest of the world. It really is, like Trevor Noah said, everyone's going right, we go left. And we can look at very out of the box, different things that are in our minds. There's definitely a niche space for stuff like that. And a good example would be Of Good Report. That was a very out of the box. It's not just about the fact that, the main character wasn't speaking, but in the way that the film as a whole was made was very out of the box. Shaka, I think, out of the box from what I've seen so far. Blood Psalms, even though it didn't get received well, out of the box. I don't think that it's necessarily always the worst thing. I know it's expensive a lot to go out of the box. It's a big risk, and you probably need more private funders in order to make it work. But I definitely think look into it. Like, you see a movie from back in the days and you're like, oh shit, that would be a cool concept, lots of short films and stuff like that. You can put out of the box ideas in those types of spaces. I definitely think that, I know out of the box is a very broad topic, but I think that things that are just like strange and you're like, oh, I don't know if anyone like this. There's someone out there and I'm probably that person, okay? I love weird shit, I love differently told stories. I think things like Intersections was very out of the box, because it was an anthology in a way that had connections to each other. Really, really dope concepts that are made out there. There's also Emoyeni, I think, was also an anthology, if I'm not mistaken. The Netflix slate for the African folklores, out of the box, So I definitely think there's a space for it. And I definitely think we should all look into it a bit more, because it could be so interesting to see the stuff that's in your mind. That could look different on screen. It would be very beautiful and exciting to look at, versus Foreplay Sex Tip for Girls at the time was out of the box, you know what I mean? I think even society in a way was kind of out of the box at that time. So what is out of the box right now for us? You just have to kind of figure that out. But I definitely think that there's a big space for something that's different, and niche. Like, there's a lot of spaces that are niche. And I think for our own selves, if we can find ways, I will look more into funding ideas and whatever and do a video on that, because I know to say all these things is very bold of me. I'm someone, as a filmmaker, I've been writing a lot of things. This is me being vulnerable. I'm someone who's been writing a lot of concepts. I'm a writer. I'm an aspiring director. I'm an editor. I'm a cinematographer. So I do a lot of things, and sometimes it is difficult for people to put their faith in me because I do a lot, but I see it as me being able to see everything from every angle so I can make my best product. And I definitely feel like, as a writer, I write ideas that I feel a bit out of the box because I don't know how to write what's already there. I get bored. I'm like, I don't want to write something that's tried and tested. I want to try something that's cool and out of the box. And I definitely know how difficult it is to get funding and approval. But I'm learning through a podcast that I'm working on that we look at things in a very linear way. If the government doesn't give me money, I can't make it. But there's so many different ways you can actually make things. I think a good example of this is, Charlie Sampson. You guys should definitely check him out. He is a very good example of what it is to be an independent filmmaker. I know he's still working on a lot of things and trying to find a way to get stuff out there, but he's got a very out of the box way of thinking. Even in the slates that are considered typical, like in Zanzi Magic and whatever, he's always able to create ideas that are kind of out of the box. And I do appreciate, he's inspired me a lot watching him grow. So looking at people like him gives me hope that we can make really interesting content. We had a guest, PJ, on our podcast that was really freaking cool, and he made me think very differently about how to look at filmmaking and how to just throw myself out there. And all the guests have honestly given me ideas on how to grow. This is not me promoting the podcast, but please watch it. But I'm just saying, you know, there are ways. And I definitely think that we should not be afraid of trying to find those ways. Another thing I wanted to bring up, if we look at the white spaces, and I have to say it bluntly because it is what it is. You know, as Black people, I feel like sometimes, unfortunately, we've been given the shorter end of the stick in how we make our content. We rush, we're giving less of a budget, we're giving less faith. So now it's become a cycle, and that's what we're stuck in. When you look at white content, they're given budgets from the same spaces that make content that looks so different, given time that we're not given, and are given spaces and allowed to go into spaces we're not given. And also they have the education on where to put these things to, and it's a big advantage for them, which is why they keep getting the money. And on top of that, they support each other, and I think that is something we're lacking, and why we don't do these bigger topics, because we only seem to support each other when it's stuff we know, even though most of us are tired of the you know, the crime and the rich people and the, you know, more crime and rich people doing crime. And I've seen some beautiful things in relation to this. I'm not even saying get rid of it, because you know what I mean, like technically Silverton Siege is crime, but they did it differently, and I love shit like that. But I definitely think that we could do so much more, and it's because we need to support each other, and we need to be given time and development and all these different things so we can make these ideas true. We deserve it. As a Black nation, we deserve to have movies as trippy as Skunhate. You know what I mean? Something as cool as adapted as Hana Hukom. And I definitely think sometimes we give ourselves the short end of the stick and we make typical things because we're scared. And we need to stop doing that shit, guys. Like, we're great, and we need to fight for our right to tell stories how we want to tell stories and how we should tell stories. And, you know, we need to support each other, and we need to march together to make that a possibility. So that is just my rant on things that we're missing and kind of why we're missing them. Look into the Afrikaans and English speaking space, guys. They really are doing amazing things. And I also urge us to kind of get back, me sounding like Mandela, I urge us to get back to being kind of a rainbow nation. It's so weird how we've gone the opposite way. Generations used to be very diverse. Istingo used to be very diverse. Well, it doesn't exist anymore, but you know what I mean? We used to have diverse TV shows and topics, intersections. We have diverse groups of people. And yes, there are more Black people. Duh. You know, then they're more Indian people. But the problem is that we don't integrate ourselves, and we have Indian movies, Black movies, African movies, English speaking movies, and no colored movies really, because it's really sad that side. You know, we don't have space for each other, and I definitely think that gap needs to be filled. You know, colored people have great stories, and there needs to be more space for colored people to tell their stories, because wow, I've watched some amazing recent movies now made by colored filmmakers, and it's like, yeah, you guys, wait, why is there nothing for you guys? That sucks. So, you know, and we don't integrate together as people. And I know we have our political things, but I'm just talking about the people who don't have we're not fighting every single person. Not all actors are fighting. There's definitely a huge gap. And I also want to aim to fill it in the movies that I make, because I don't care what anyone says. I'm gonna make my movies. And I hope you also have that same mentality of you're gonna make movies, and you're gonna make them well, and you're gonna develop them, and you're gonna market them, and you're gonna distribute them, and you're gonna put them in the festivals, because you deserve to have big spaces. The end goal is not a streaming platform, okay? Put it there when you're done getting all your other money from your festivals. You know what I mean? Winning all your awards, and then be like, okay, I guess I can put it here. You know what I mean? I think that there's such a, you know, cinema sales and stuff. That would be amazing. I know this top is turning very different, but there's so much space, and we are missing so much. Like, everything I said is just a little bit. I could go deeper into every integral part of what we're missing, but that would take a long time. You know, but I definitely think we need to start filling the gaps as much as we can when we go to these new slates. Submit things that are just, you love, passionate about, because usually those are the ones that are very different from what's there. Sometimes I know people are just writing to survive, and that is, I've done it too. I'm like, I got a story I could give you that's really, I didn't even think about it. I could write in my sleep. But my body says, nah, that's not you. And we deserve a space as passionate people to show the topics that are interesting. I'll probably do a part 2 of this if you'd like. Let me know. Anyway, I'm sorry this became like a long rant about like, oh my God, we need to do better. But I definitely feel like we can do better as a society. And I'm excited to see everything South Africa has to offer, because it's gonna be beautiful. It's really gonna be beautiful. And I'm excited. I hear stories every day on set. You guys who've told me some of your ideas, I am so excited because you're gonna make them, and I'm gonna make my ideas, and we're gonna kill it. Okay, before the world ends, let's go out with that bang. Okay, I know that sounded like some 2012 shit, but I'm trying to just say, leave a legacy that you're proud of, you know. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed. Comment below, what do you feel about anything I've said? Was I overstepping? Do you feel that I'm wrong in something, right in something? Do you have things that you think I missed? And are there specific things you'd like me to talk about? I'll do it for you, boo. Let's go. Okay, guys, enjoy the rest of your day. I hope you enjoyed this video, and you guys are so beautiful. Stay beautiful, and I will see you in the next one, which will be for the Swifties. Shout out. Okay, bye.